Team Fantasy Outlook time. Let's get it. Welcome in, everybody. Today we're going to dive deep into the fantasy team outlook of the 2022 Arizona Cardinals. The Cardinals are going to once again have high expectations for this season. Last season, they were able to produce some solid fantasy options for you to have through your roster throughout the season. As we look at last year's standings, the Cardinals finished 2021 as the number 2 team in their division. They finished behind the Rams at 11-6-0. This year, I believe it'll be difficult to repeat that type of record without Deandre Hopkins for the first 6 games of the season. This year in the draft, the Arizona Cardinals took 2 players who I believe could be fantasy relevant in 2022. Trey Mcbride is a tight end out of Colorado State who was projected as the number 1 tight end out of the class. He is a good pass catcher who could see the field in more 12 personnel packages due to DeAndre Hopkins being out for the first 6 games of the season. Tight ends are usually not fantasy relevant in their rookie campaign, and I look for that to be the case this year with Zach Ertz on the roster. The only other notable fantasy relevant player that was selected by the Arizona Cardinals would be Keonta Ingram, the running back out of USC. He should be a clear backup to James Conner to spell him on a few carries a game at most. In my opinion, Ingram should only be drafted as a handcuff to James Conner. Now let's look at an overview of the fantasy targets for the Cardinals in 2022. We are going to break this down into 3 categories. The first category is studs. These are players that you can easily plug and play regardless of matchups. Studs can win you weeks even against difficult defenses. The next category is starters. These are players that you will start almost every week, except there could be a few weeks where matchups can dictate whether you start them or not. The last category we'll talk about is the flex. These are players that you can plug into your flex position and they have a chance to have a fantasy relevant game, but cannot be counted on every week due to inconsistency. In the stud category, we're going to look at quarterback Kyler Murray and wide receiver DeAndre Hopkins. In the starters category, we're going to look at James Conner, Zach Ertz, and Marquise Brown. In the flex category, we're going to be looking at Rondelle Moore. Now let's dive into each of those fantasy football targets for the 2022 season. First up, we have Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray is a dual threat quarterback that you can rely on every week as your starter. He is a plug and play option. In 2021, Kyler finished as the quarterback number 10. Kyler is also surrounded with receiving talent that can help him produce at a high level. It will hurt that Hopkins is lost for the first 6 games of the season, but with the acquisition of Marquise Brown, they are hoping that it's not going to be taking too many steps backwards. Being a mobile quarterback, it does help Kyler have games that keep him in the top 12 for quarterbacks. Look for Murray to be a much better quarterback in the second half of the season after Hopkins comes back from the suspension. Next on the list, we have DeAndre Hopkins. As we said before, Hopkins is suspended for the first 6 games of the season due to failing a drug test. He missed 7 games last season due to injury, which led him to fall to wide receiver 46. Hopkins is a sure-handed wide receiver that is the go-to guy for Murray. DeAndre Hopkins won't be a top 24 wide receiver this season due to his suspension, but starting week 7, he should be an easy plug-and-play wide receiver for you every week. Now let's go over the running back who finished number 5 last season in James Conner. James Conner is a solid running back that would complement your roster nicely as an RB2. Even though he had health concerns going into last year, he only missed 2 games. Now with Chase Edmonds gone to the Dolphins, this is Conner's job to lose. The Cardinals did draft a running back in the 6th round in Keonta Ingram, but he shouldn't scare you off this season. Conner will be given the bulk of the carries in a high-flying offense. Look to target James Conner in the early to mid rounds and have a solid RB2 that you could feel good starting every week. Next, we have the number 5 overall tight end from last season, Zach Ertz. Zach Ertz came over from the Eagles for week 7 and started to become a trusted commodity for Murray. Zach Ertz is now a relevant tight end that you can grab in the later rounds and easily be a weekly starter for you. Even with the Cardinals selecting Trey Mcbride in round 2 of this year's draft, Zach Ertz is definitely still a sleeper candidate for me this season. I'm calling it now. Look for Ertz to be a top 5 tight end this season. Next on the list is Marquise Brown. Brown was acquired during the 2022 NFL Draft for the 23rd overall pick from the Baltimore Ravens. Brown was able to finish as the wide receiver number 22 in a run-first offense with Baltimore. Now coming over to a more pass-oriented offense, as well as Hopkins being suspended for the first 6 games of the season, look for Brown to command wide receiver 1 numbers and have some boom weeks. Brown has some speed on him, and he should be able to beat defenders downfield. You should be able to grab Brown early in drafts and have many weeks you are left smiling because he could just put up a monster game. The downside to Brown is that Hopkins will be coming back in Week 7, and the production with Brown will decline. Last on the list, we will shift to Rondelle Moore. Moore finished 2021 as the number 65 wide receiver and is the wild card of this offense. The question is whether he will take a leap forward and become the focal point of this offense. It's now or never for Moore. With Hopkins out 6 weeks, he will have every opportunity to show that he belongs with the starters. Look for Moore to be more of a bye week fill-in as a flex option in 2022. As always, thank you for watching the video. In this series, we're going to be breaking down every team of the 2022 season to better prepare you to dominate your draft and to make sure you can have a championship on your resume. We'll see you in the next video. Take care.